Welcome to Season 3 of This Is How My Brain Works, the podcast about living, thriving, and laughing through the ups and downs of neurodiversity. We explore the real stories, the real struggles, and the real strengths that come with thinking differently.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. Along with Krista, Gano, Sarah, Hines, I'm Jason Rudofsky. Michael Collins is on assignment today. Today's topic, ADHD and listening. Had a conversation with my wife last night about my poor listening skills. I contend that it's partially, if not mostly, because of my ADHD. She says no. What do you guys think? I'll tell you what I think. My brain...
Wait, were you going to listen or no?
I'm not listening to either of you right now, but what I'm telling you is I'm too fidgety. There's too many things going around in my head. I'm thinking about... I can't, it's very difficult for me to focus and to listen. I really have to dig in. Really, really, really dig in. And I'm just a poor listener. I'm a poor listener. Not great with directions. Skip over directions. I'm there's just too much going on at one time for me to really focus. Sometimes I interrupt a lot because I'm thinking of things to say during a conversation.
I think the interrupting is actually an ADHD.
It is
like a symptom, or with lack of a better word.
No,
but like
it certainly is. And we talk about impulsivity, and it just wells up all the time. The brain can't shut down to a point where I can listen to an entire conversation. That's why I have trouble listening to a lot of things. I'm a visual guy. I'm a visual guy. Listening is very difficult for me. I'm trying to not talk to hear somebody out. But I'm almost uncertain of when that conversation is over and then I can speak. I'm constantly interrupting, asking questions, almost putting words in someone's mouth. Like I'm thinking of what they're about to say. If there's any pause, I'm like, I try and insert a word into a conversation.
So my husband does this thing with me that I always say that, I mean, you all know that I have a very vibrant inner mind palace, but so does my husband, even though he doesn't always admit it. And there are times where he has finished my story before I have finished my story, and that story is so wrong, and it is on a different planet. It was not my story. And I have to say, wait, that's not, no, you've made that up. It's not my story. If you would listen, you would hear the rest of my story. That said, I also know on the flip side of what it is to listen to my husband, he is a verbal processor in a way that if it was a picture, like if it was a visual picture, it would look like a big squiggle all over the place, like desperately trying to find the point, like just so trying, like desperately. And I am definitely like, get to the point. And as a matter of fact, even when I part of me would rather you tell me the point and then let's work to what you were saying about it, and I'll say that because sometimes I feel like Greg will come up to me and start talking to me in the middle of his own thought, and I'll have to go, what are we talking about? Can we come back and can I get the topic? Or can I get the thing? Sometimes I feel like he's dropped me into his head midway. And so it's hard for me to sometimes know where we are. But I know that I have been probably perceived as uncaring at times when I've said things like, can we just get to the point? How long before we get to the point? Because to me, it feels excruciating to sit there and listen and try to figure out what of this is important and what is not, and what are we trying to say, what's a momentary side quest, what's happening. And I know, I think I've gotten better, and I think Jason, probably you have too, because I've seen it, and I know Michael has, and Sarah as well. In this process of doing this, as we're listening, often we're jotting things down, because I think that's why we interrupt sometimes when we're listening and are perceived as bad listeners. It's because it's sort of like we want to, it's like we have, it's like we have the old hook that they used to have with trains, that they'd put the mail onto the train and they'd have to like throw the hook onto the train so the mail, they'd be able to get the mail off or put the mail on. It's like if we don't hook that moment, we will forget what we had to say. And I've had to work on two different things, which is like writing it down so I can come back to it and really have that thought, or saying something, actually three, or saying something like, I'm so sorry, I just want to make sure I say this here before I lose it and we move on. Or just going like, not every thought that you have in your head needs to be expressed. So those three things are like how I've worked on that. But so I guess I say all that because some of it's more about talking than it is about listening. But in the spirit of how your wife communicates, I think that's a piece of the puzzle. Like there are times I just cannot listen to Greg because of the sheer number of side quests that he has to take to verbally process where it is. And we've talked about this before, that even when my kids do it too, that there are times where I'm like, do you just need me to be here and listen, or do you need me to interact with this and give advice? And when they say, I just need you to listen, there are times where I'm playing Mahjong on my phone. And I'm listening with like half a ear, because if I do that, I'm not hooked, and I don't need to like, and some people are like, that's so mean because you're not like really into it. Well, if I'm really into it, we might not get through it because I might interrupt or have questions or have thoughts or whatever. And if they really need to info dump to me, they need me just to be like a vessel. And my vessel works better when my brain works on a couple things at one time.
All of the above.
Say
Are you a
more,
good listener,
Sarah.
Sarah?
Say more.
Well, one, I was having trouble listening to both of you. It was a lot.
I was about to say Sarah always looks like she's a great listener.
I agree.
And I was listening, but I was also thinking, this is all stuff that I feel, and so I don't need to listen that hard. I was mahjonging it, but I did hear. And the one thing, I'm going to hack this whole system for your wife. Ask for the conclusion first. That helps a lot. So it's actually how I train, so I'm going to be going to mock trial team later today with my awesome mock trialers. And in the law, we teach what we like to call crack. Conclusion, rule, application, conclusion. So I'm going to tell you some hacks. I have ADHD, so I struggle to listen and pay attention. Your hook example, Krista, for me is like a set of balloons, and someone's holding a whole bunch of balloons and they're talking about each one. And I don't know which balloon's important, but when I see a shiny balloon I like, I want to talk about that balloon. So those are the rules that apply to my thing. And how I apply that is, to your point, I take notes. I write down the things that I'm like, that really struck me. And if someone doesn't give me the conclusion at the beginning that I'm going to do hacks, I'm going to think all of those balloons might be important. So I'm writing them all down. But then, as normal people do, they say their conclusion at the end. And then I go, oh, we're looking for hacks. Then I can go back to my notes and go, oh, these 4 things, but not these other 12 million, are important to the hack. But honestly, it's asking for that conclusion ahead of time. And the other thing that all of this made me think of is a conversation I had with a friend. And it was about another friend who's often late. And by often late, every single time, always late. And the neurotypical friend has a lot going on in their life, and they've moved mountains to be there on time. And it feels like disrespect that this other friend who has likely undiagnosed ADHD is always late. And what I tried to explain is, and then which we'll call it the A for neurotypical and Z for zany ADHD. So
Right.
A is like, I've moved mountains. My time is important. I've got a lot going on, but I was there on time. And A will say about Z, Z doesn't miss flights. Z's on time for airplanes. So
Like, this is like having a conversation with my mother. Sorry, keep going.
yeah. So clearly, Z is capable of being on time. And therefore, when they are not on time to these things with me, they're being disrespectful.
Right.
They're not respecting my time. And I tried to say, no, the consequences of missing the flight are so big that they've moved mental mountains to be there on time. I actually was gonna be on time to our podcast today. I was sat down at my desk at, 4 minutes before I needed to log on, and I was like, ooh, I've got 4 minutes. Well, I then, of course, logged in late because I did 4 minutes, which turned into 6 minutes. And that's two ADHD behaviors that happened. One, I thought I could get more done in the time, so time blindness. And two, I got down the rabbit hole of hyper focus in the thing that I was getting done so that I blew past the deadline. And those are but like the mental energy to be on time to something, like I'm going on a flight today. My bags are packed. I'm 100% ready. I've got my computer plugged in next to my bag, next to my keys to the car, next to the food that I'm going to take with me so that I don't forget anything. And I started packing last night, yesterday morning, actually, to make sure that I had a list to make sure that I didn't forget a darned thing. But the energy it took to do all of that is so great. And when I'm going to meet friends, I'm not going to necessarily, otherwise, if my friends need me to not be late and put that much energy into it, instead of being able to meet up once a week or, once every 2 weeks, once every 6 months, because it's going to be too hard.
Too stressful. Well, it's so interesting because I think that part of that is also understanding like who it's, because I have friends who it's not important, right? Like it's just most of my neurodivergent friends, it's not important. And so there are the friends that is important. Sometimes I will be like, ooh, because I just don't want to have the conversation, right? And I'm never, I mean, and I have this conversation with my youngest all the time, who is probably pathologically like 3 minutes late. It's always like it's under 5. So in the grand scheme of thing, it's not crazy. And I know Jason's always on time or early. But when I think about school, I'm always like, what effort would it take for you just to move that 3 minutes? It's not 15, it's not 30, it's 3. I remember in college, I dated a man from Argentina who was always approximately 30 minutes late. And I started leaving at 15. I was like, you get 15 minutes of grace time with me, and then I leave. And so he started getting left on dates and other things. I would just not be there. He learned pretty quickly that I did have a window that was considered appropriate for me, at least. I wasn't angry. I wasn't mad. I just wasn't going to sit there by myself in places for 30 minutes. But I think some of this, my mother said something to me when I said it's like talking to my mother. My mother, who I believe actually is neurotypical, she said,
Lucky or
huh?
not. I joked and said she's lucky, but then I was
Maybe.
like,
I don't know, baby. But she said something to me about my lateness that stopped me in my tracks of being late. And it was something around the idea of, I think it's incredibly selfish that you're late. And I said, tell me more. And she said, because you know that the rest of us can't start doing the thing that was planned until you're here. And so it requires you to have the entrance and to be the star all the time. And I just had this like, that it felt so bad that she, because I'm also, just like many of us, a bit of I'm not always a people pleaser, but certainly with my mother I am. And it made me feel like, oh my God, you guys could have gotten started. But it put this thing on me that I just stopped. I just stopped being like, I'm not saying I'm never late, but it's always within the 5 minutes. It's never beyond that, because I don't want people to feel like I'm, trying to make the entrance, so to speak.
But that doesn't
I wonder why you didn't let the Argentinian, why didn't you tell him 5:30 instead of 6? And then
Yeah,
you'd both show up at 6 and you'd be perfect.
I did that a couple of times, and then he caught on. So, and so then I just started leaving.
I don't know that your lateness, it doesn't sound like ADHD lateness.
Oh no, it is, because I do this, because that's what I do. I do the same thing that in my head, what happens when I'm late is I plan it out meticulously. If you do this by 15 minutes, if you do this by 5 minutes, if you do this, blah, 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 like I do it. And then I sit down and I go, I can scroll, or I can go clean the house, or I can do that. I can fit it into 5 minutes. And then before you know it, it's not five. No, absolutely. I might arrive like a duck, on the top of the water, but underneath that, what people don't know is I was a crazy person to make that happen. So, no.
Yeah.
And then I'm a fantastic excuse maker, especially in Los Angeles. The traffic. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I left an hour ahead. And then that traffic, no. It was all ADHD behavior.
Okay, never
I'm
mind.
just super good at masking it.
We were originally talking about listening. Now we're talking about time. And
Well, we
being
weren't listening. Duh.
We can go back to listening as well.
About time almost rules my life. It almost rules my life. I do not like being late. I don't like the feeling of being rushed or immediately under pressure. I want to make sure that I'm set and prepared for whatever it is. I give myself kind of a buffer. Say again.
This is Greg. Like he'll go, like he doesn't, he hates, for example, for rehearsal for the band, he cannot stand if he walks into rehearsal and someone else is already there. It's like he needs that transition time to make sure his stuff is set, that copies are made for the band. Like when I'm thinking about you going in the morning to work, like just like having just a couple minutes where you're like, okay, now, like that's so important. So if he walks in and someone was there rehearsing early or whatever, it like really just like makes his head hurt. And that is very much him, and he will always be early on those things. But I also watched that thing too, where he's like, I've been waiting for you guys forever, and then we're like, let's go, and then all of a sudden he's like, I gotta go to the bathroom, and I need a water bottle, and I got things for, and before you know it, it's like, so it sort of goes both ways with him, but with work stuff, he's always early. And then but I'll tell you, being able to work at home has revolutionized my ability to be on time, because I can pretty much stop almost everything and just slide into the desk and press the button to be on Zoom, right? So, although I've messed up on that too on occasion when I've really had time blindness, but I do think though that Greg is very similar to you, Jason, with that really wanting, and more of a higher level people pleaser than I am.
What's that? Higher level, like he just wants to please more than you, or he does it a different way?
No, I am so much faster to say the shitty thing, blow things up, be honest, not care. I'm way more faster, and that's the autism piece of my puzzle that comes in. I'm way more. I move to the fuck 'em a lot faster than he does.
Well, and the other thing is, I think for Greg and I and people that
present like you,
there is a sense of not wanting to be seen as ill-prepared, unprepared.
It's the same embarrassment
not
thing.
having your shit together.
Yeah,
right.
It's the
like
same...
coming in late all the time is like, they don't got it together. How hard is it to get there? Whatever.
But it's also that embarrassment thing.
Yes, it's shame, it's embarrassment. It's
like being put in front of the class, in front of everybody when you're young because something wasn't. It's like all of that stuff, and that is the one I will have to say. I feel like I have I had the relief, and now I look back and I grieve certain things because I realize now how much I didn't understand. But I think I and my oldest on the autism part of the puzzle have a relief of like, we don't notice often, and we don't, I mean, I'll notice that people are mad at me. I just don't know how much I always care. And that seems really weird to say, but that's kind of the truth. Sometimes I care a lot.
You
And
got me
sometimes I
interested.
just
What are
don't.
you grieving? I want to hear more about this. Like, what are
I
you?
think I've talked to you about it, but I've talked to you guys about before that now that I understand, I'm starting to understand the autism piece a bit more. I look back on my life and I see the times where I completely misconstrued a situation, I think because I missed the social cues. And I grieve maybe how I may have caused others to feel not understanding or not seeing it. And I also grieve grieve is a strong word for this one, but I'm also much more aware of how many times I was pushed to the side, not invited, not included. Um, the whispers or the talk, switched when I showed up. Um, I have had a very big realization of, I think I've told you this, Sarah, of how much I know I'm valued for my work output, but I'm not valued as a person because I'm a little weird and it's hard to, it's like I used to always say, I'm like a fungus. I will grow on you. Like at first you don't like me, but I will grow on you. But I think so much of what I've been valued for in my past has been what I'm able to accomplish because of my aptitude and my brain as opposed to and my pattern recognition and all the things as opposed to being valued because I'm fun to hang out with. And I'm not always fun to hang out with. I'm pretty serious in certain things. I like intellectual stuff. I like
Like
problems
mahjong.
and around like right. I like these things. So when somebody said, is she really fun? I don't know. I have a vision of fun and I don't think I'm always fun.
It's that question, two beers and two puppies. You know that question?
Oh, what is this
Oh,
question?
it's one of my favorites. It's some smart person came up with it, real smart. But they basically said all the people, like the people in your life, would you want to sit down and have two beers with them? And would you trust them with your two puppies if you had to go out of town? And so the question becomes, which are you? And it maybe changes. And the people definitely to avoid are the people you wouldn't want to have two beers with and you wouldn't trust with two puppies.
Yeah, I think you'd trust me with with your two puppies, and I don't want know if you'd want to have two beers with me because I don't drink, and that freaks people out. But
But no, it's the idea of like
if
it
it was
doesn't have
something
to be a
else,
fear is just the
right?
placeholder for the way it feels to
I
hang out and be. And for me, when you're talking, I want to talk intellectual, I would have two beers with you because that's
yeah,
what I want to talk about. And I
right. You
would
got to
trust
find
you
your
with
people.
exactly. And so when you're saying that you're grieving this, what I'm hearing now, and to put a hack on it, and I'm really listening, Rudy,
Good.
uh-huh, is that we have to find those people that we both want to have two beers with and that we want to trust with our puppies and that they feel the same way about us. And as an autistic person, I have had that mismatch happening all over the place where I'm
Right.
definitely there's some people that wouldn't trust me. To your point, Jason, I don't want to seem like a loser because I'm not prepared and I didn't and I'm not on time, but definitely there's people who think because of the way that I talk and I'm rabbit, squirrel all over the place, they think that I've got, that I'm not really trustworthy in terms of my analysis because they can't follow the logic that I'm putting out there because I'm jumping all over the place. And they don't trust me to come back and pick up the little threads that I've, thrown out and then put them back together and weave it into a cohesive story. On the flip side, there's other people who wouldn't, want to have two beers with me because all I want to do is talk about intellectual stuff and play mahjong, to pick up Krista's point.
Yeah, no, but I think that's where maybe the grieving is, is in the sense of that I don't know if I knew to look for something different before
Yeah.
because you spend an entire life just going, there's a mismatch. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. I guess it's me.
Yeah,
And
just me. It must be me.
this is just my lot in life. Like this is the thing. Like, and I think and so grief is I mean, part of it is a layer of grief, for sure. But I think that's also a strong word. There is sort of just this like analysis of looking back and going like, oh,
And it kind of comes into
oh,
the listening Jason's talking about. We need to learn how
yes,
to listen for our brain right?
Yeah, and I
Like,
think
what do you mean?
accurate.
What do you mean? Listen for our brain. Explain.
So if we are with people that we would have 2 beers and share 2 puppies with, then that interrupting becomes part of the flow. When we're with someone who doesn't either understand or accept how our brain works, that mismatch is going to keep happening and it's going to get harder to listen, both from their end and from our end. And so the more that we understand ourselves, we can then try to communicate that. And it sounds like you're still in that place with Lisa, where it's,
Well,
Well,
it's
and I
just
think
life. I mean, life.
yeah.
there's an extra level, I think, with your spouse. There's sort of an extra
Oh,
level
yeah,
that's not there with
totally.
others with your spouse because you
Yeah,
really,
it's a different situation.
yeah, you really want to, I think, connect in different ways and kind of have to on certain things. But I did see something like, I don't know, you know me, I'm always on TikTok. It was something on TikTok where it was a neurodivergent person talking about listening. And they said, and it was one of those like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, you guys just sit there silently until someone's like deems it's your turn to talk? This is conversation, interrupting, sharing an idea, moving it forward, maybe taking 45 minutes to come back to the original question because you went on a side quest. She's like, this is what I see as normal communication. And I am being told that I'm the one who's disruptive and that I'm not normal. And she's like, I just don't know how you sit there and like fold your hands and then respond after someone's just spoken. Like, she's like, what is that? Like, that's not communication. What
That's
is
a
that?
monologue.
That's right. So that's what and that's kind of how I feel. I mean, I understand that there's times like in a meeting or, in the professional landscape where you kind of have to sort of have more of a thing. But when you're when you're hanging out with people, Jason's nodding. Like, I just don't know how you sit there and be like, now pass the shell and someone else will talk. Like, it just seems so bizarre.
I don't operate like that.
Yeah.
I don't
So
operate like that.
when you say
I
that that she says you're not listening, is it because you don't remember like some of the things she said? What's actually going on there?
It's just the fact that I interrupt a lot. I'm putting, words. I went to the store. You went to the store? No. I went so and so to get the toothbrush. You went and got the toothbrush. I'm
This is
always
me
making a
talking to my
story.
husband. This is
I'm
me talking to my
always
husband.
making a story. I'm constantly, that's how I communicate. That's how I communicate. But consequently, I'm not listening intently. My brain has got, constant, it's just a revolving,
I
the
would
bingo
venture to
ball.
say it's one step different or more or different than that, Jason. Or this is how I feel. When Greg does that to me, because he does that to me all the time, what it feels like to me is like if I'm walking forward and I say I went to that and he says store and I was going to say museum. He's now taken me one step back and to the side so I can process what he said and go, no, I didn't go to the store. I went to the museum and then I went to see the dinosaurs. No. And like for me, it's just like if you would just because for me,
Right. That's what I mean. Right.
I want to get it out in a period of time. And I feel like our conversations take 10 times longer than if you just let me say the sentence I needed to say, and then we can talk about it. And 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 there's an efficiency thing for me that can put me into a bit of rage when I feel like I just can't say the thing that I said, especially, and I told him, I was like, we do this all the time, Jason. You and my husband are so similar. And I remember saying to him, if you were right, I wouldn't mind it, but you're not right most of the time. So it makes me furious. Because now you're taking me back into the side to just try to say one sentence. Just let me say it. And then you can talk. I don't care. Just let me say it.
I mean, I feel like my brain is ready to react to anything. You're 3 words in and I'm ready to give you the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Or something has triggered my brain and I want to talk about baseball bats. Or that reminds me of a story when I was at an ice cream shop. Or
And the bigger challenge. And the bigger challenge, at least with me, is that if Greg does not interrupt me, he will sometimes get this look where he's going inside his own brain to talk to himself because he's not talking to me, which means he's not listening anyway. And then I still have to sort of look at him and go like, okay, where'd you go? Let me know when you're, and I know, gosh, if someone was listening to me on the outside, they'd think I'm such a bitch probably, but I'll say, let me know when you're listening again. And I'll just pause. But he
Have you ever done the thing where you're like, now can you tell me what I just said?
Oh yeah, I've done that too.
I do that too.
That's tough.
And you know what's it used to make him furious because I can often look like I'm not listening because I went my degree, one of my degrees is in sign language interpreting, and so much of that is just hearing and processing and putting it back out, right? So I'm a great and you're never looking at the person who's talking when you're doing it. So I have a skill of that. And so there are times we'll be like, you're not listening, say it. And I would repeat it verbatim. And he would just be like, oh, just make him so mad.
I went to an improv show. In fact, Michael Collins was in it.
Oh.
And one of the games, have you ever done, it's a reverse. You say something and then someone yells reverse, and then you've got to go backwards and all the words backwards as you just said them forwards.
Do that.
That's hard.
I've had nightmares about that. I've never done it. But first of all, it's a lot of information, and two, I'm not a great listener. So I would need to practice a lot to do the game, to work on that a lot. I was so impressed by how Michael even admitted it was one of his best shows and one of the best games that he had played. It was remarkable to me how people, and so the story got longer. Is like, I went on a camping trip and I took an A and then a B, right? You go through the alphabet as a kid, and then you'd have to go back. I took a cat, a dog. It's like, I'm not exactly sure what my brain was listening to, how it's being processed sometimes.
I think that's one of the reasons why improv is such a great practice for people is just based on heightening listening skills. Because you kind of have to if you really want to be a good improv partner.
Yes, I agree with that.
We're going to have to wrap up because I think Michael's going to interrupt us here in a couple of minutes.
Is he?
Speaking of, yeah. Listeners, to do some business. We got to do some business.
I'll tell you one thing. Visual, if you can couple, it's hard, like directions even. I'm very visual. So if you couple it with a drawing or anything that I can look at, it helps tremendously. But you're right, to sit there and to listen.
Can I tell you why I think that is, Jason? Because I think our brains like to work on two problems at the same time. It's why we like to crochet or play mahjong while we're watching television. We don't just sit there and stare at the TV. We're always often doing something. We're tinkering with something, putting together a model. We got a puzzle. We're doing something. Our brains like more than one problem at the same time. And so for you, perhaps with listening, maybe it's having something as simple as having either something visual to look at or having a piece of paper so that you're writing down or even scribbling, drawing, whatever. That's why doodling is often really great for ADHD kids. And we had to
love doodling.
Yeah, we had to get approval from the school to let my kids doodle during notes and these things, so. But I think, maybe that's the tip we'll leave it on is like, maybe try, if you've got to sit and listen to something, find something for your brain to do that's addition to the listening.
Another one that might work is hard candies. Suck on a hard candy. It keeps you from interrupting. Keeps you from interrupting, and a sour candy. High recommend.
Because because the sour candy does the same thing. It tells your brain there's a problem. It has to sort out. All right.
Wow.
Well,
no, I don't think. Yeah. Well, this is a nice, interesting episode.
This was a lovely topic. Thank you, Jason. Rudy Rudofsky.
Well, you're welcome, Sarah.
I enjoyed listening.
You're a good listener. Both of you are very good listeners.
Oh, thank
I'd repeat what we said. kind of give like a summation of this episode, but it was a lot.
It was a lot.
I'm kidding. Well, for Michael Collins, who is not with us, Sarah Hines, Krista Gano, and myself, Jason Rudofsky, thanks for listening to another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. We will catch you next time.
Catch you on the flip side.
If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. This podcast is the creative work of This Is How My Brain Works. It is not authorized for use in training, development, or refinement of artificial intelligence or machine learning systems. Any attempt to copy, analyze, or repurpose this audio for AI training is explicitly prohibited.